In, True Hoops little Zoom from quarantine show on Friday with Jarod after the trade deadline. Woo! Little dizzy. It's the day that they confuse everybody because you're like, are you, no, wait, where'd Marquise Chris go? Everything's a little like, what the hell? So don't worry, we'll clear everything up for you today. Absolutely. But Jarod, we should start with your video. Here we go.
Oh, yes.
Every year, we in the media and fans too work ourselves into a frenzy over who should be the MVP.
What's the narrative? Who hasn't won yet? Who's won too much? Should playoff failure count? But it's a regular season award. Enough. It's time we stop being so protective and resistant to change and borrow from some of the other major sports.
1. Keep the MVP as a regular season award. 2. Add a playoffs MVP. And 3. Add an offensive player of the year. I mean, the NFL does it, and we already have a defensive player of the year award. So let's just bookend the set. It'll work. Nikola Jokic can be the MVP of the regular season. The NHL has proven that playoff MVP works. Their Conn Smythe Trophy is awarded based on performance during the entire postseason, not just the championship. If you drag an injured team to the finals and lead your team in every relevant statistical category, why should finals MVP go to some dude on the winning team who had 4 good games?
All the games should matter. And I mean, offensive player of the year? We won't have to argue about that.
So when you
can't argue about that.
Out and like all the funny little things in there.
Yeah.
Yes, Rachel Nichols stole that idea from me, Devin. No, she was not the originator of that.
I'm here to tell you that you can find that from the 60s.
I was gonna say it's so old. It's such an old idea.
Yeah.
But I like it though, right? Like, let's give more awards to argue about. It's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we don't end up arguing in America these days.
Yeah, we need more arguing. Pump it up. Okay, here's some things to argue about. This is where we do 90 seconds each, 3 rounds. Jarod Hector, you will kick us off.
Yeah, so a couple tweets I saw regarding the vaccine. First one, she's going to pull up here, I believe, is either my guy Triple J or it's Monty Poole talking about Kent Bazemore's response to will he get the vaccine? Oh, and the screen's gone, so we don't see it. But Bazemore said, when asked, are you getting the vaccine? No, sir. Okay, so one answer. And then Jaren Jackson Jr., he's actually showed a picture of himself, and he changed his screen name to Jaren Vaxit, like Vaccin Jr., as in like vaccination. And he shows him rolling up his sleeve, like getting the shot. And it's the thing that we talked about on here. And I asked myself, like, what are we actually doing here with this? Of course, we are proponents of everyone taking the vaccine and doing what you have to do. But asking NBA players that they're going to do it, and then when they say no, putting that out there, like in the internet, like what are we trying to accomplish? And ultimately, if someone says no, that you're doing that for a reason, right? Like you're not going to put out if someone said yes, right? So it's like you're doing it for a reaction. And I'm not really sure if we should be playing that game that we do on Twitter and social media with something as serious as the vaccination. And I yield my remaining 12 seconds.
Too bad. You should keep going. That was fantastic. Yeah, it's really amazing insight in the way to put that. So I'm sure we all know the state of Georgia literally wrote into law yesterday all sorts of ways to make sure Georgians don't vote, especially ones that look like Jarod. They clearly want that to be the case where less Black people vote and less maybe people wouldn't vote Republican vote. But also, I think they're putting in policy ways they can overturn elections. Like they're trying to make law what Trump tried to do, but what Trump tried to do was against the law. Now they're trying to make it the law. They actually did in some cases, but they can overturn elections. So I feel like our NBA, the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, Hollywood, which does a lot of movies in Georgia for tax purposes, they all need to start talking. Maybe they already have. Just let Stacey Abrams lead the way and start just laying down the law. Like we want to take our teams out. We want to take our events out. Like this is literally hijacking democracy in the highest form. And I'm not an expert on this, but I've listened to some experts for weeks now talking about this. You can read Stacey Abrams' eyes. This is very 5-alarm fire type of stuff. And there's leverage being built in these great leagues that we have in the movie industry to have consequences. Hey, you want to do what you're doing, fine. There's going to be major financial consequences to it. I think we need to start seeing that happen immediately. Don't wait.
Okay, we just published David Thorpe's article, which is kind of resetting who are the contenders after the trade deadline. There's still one more kind of stop left for rosters might change, which will be the buyout market. But I think this is fascinating. So David put them in tiers, and we can talk more about this later. But top tier is just the Jazz and the Bucks. Second tier is the 76ers, Lakers, and Nets. Third tier, Clippers and Nuggets. Fourth tier, Heat, Mavericks, Blazers. I think that might be because David's my friend, and Suns. What I like about this is it's very, very different from the Vegas odds right now. I like that. I like that they're different views. And like in Vegas, the Nets are clearly number one, which we'll talk about in a second. But anyway, of particular interest here to me is the Bucks, who are number 2 in the East. The weaker conference are the lone East team in the top tier here. And David's argument, which we'll talk about, is basically they played tight. And now that they've had that not work for a while, they have a little bit of a devil may care attitude, which combined with Drew Holiday makes you really freaking good. So anyway, we'll see how it goes. But I was pretty excited to see that his take is a little different than everybody else's.
Yeah, lots to discuss there. Okay, so last night the Blazers beat the Heat.
Did they? I didn't notice.
The first game of their road trip. That likely is the toughest game, and they'll probably go 5-0 on this road trip. But I love what CJ McCollum here said after the game.
But in terms of the All-Star game and stuff like that, man, I just work extremely hard, and I don't need validation from outsiders. I don't need validation from other people because I know what I have and what I bring to the table. So if I never make an All-Star game, man, I won't be sad about it because I know I'm nice, and I know a lot of people respect my game.
So CJ McCollum is one of my favorite players in the NBA. My buddy used to coach at Lafayette, and so I would go to watch his games when he was coaching there and see Lehigh. I'm like, who the hell is that kid? And why is he killing everybody on the team? Like, he's in the wrong league. Why isn't he playing in the ACC? This is crazy. And I think of when CJ was said there is perspective, right? And Coach always says this: you're allowed to grow, you're allowed to mature. It takes a special amount of work to get to the point, not just, of course, the basketball work, but mentally where CJ is. Just think about yourself as a human. When you get to the level, if you are there, where you don't care what outside people think about something because you're secure enough in whom you are as a person and what you've done, that is incredible. And to be able to do that, like, as a professional athlete that's bizarro, because you live in a bizarro world where literally people judge you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So shouts to CJ McCollum.
Also, incredible use of the word nice.
Oh, yes. Love it. I love when players that do that. It's my favorite thing.
That's the best.
He's jacked, by the way, compared to what looked like at Lehigh. Man, he doesn't just buy wine and drink good wine. He's been
lifting. I saw him actually in the city running out in the street here a couple of years ago, working out. I'm like, what's up, CJ? He's like, hey, man, just working out. I was like, all right, cool.
That dude, yeah. He's a lot of people's favorite players, right? All right, so in that same game, amazingly enough, hey, we're talking about the Blazers again. Trevor Ariza is guarding Damian Lillard. I don't think there's any question with 1 second on the clock. They called a foul because he hit Damian Lillard on his arm shooting a three. Do you guys, I want to hear later if you agree, clearly hit him on the arm. You could argue that it wasn't violent. It doesn't have to be violent. My question is, and I think Eric Spoelstra is a fantastic coach, but why in the hell was Trevor Ariza in the game? Like, he just got there. Do we have that little respect for the game that we just think the name Trevor Ariza means he'll be the shutdown guy? And as it turns out, he did force Damian into a tough shot, but that wasn't enough. He had to go try to actually block it. And now part of it's because Damian Lillard's amazing. I get that. He's had some game winners this season and years past, but you have to play blackjack in these situations. You have to live with you cut off the things he wanted to do. That is a low percentage shot. Not as low as it used to be, and not as low as for some of the guys it is for Damian, but it's still not a high percentage shot. But I tell you what's 100% guaranteed to lose the game, and that's hitting him on the arm. And these are all things that I'm telling you, you can put a fourth-year bad player on him, and he wouldn't have done that foul. It's a terrible, terrible foul. But Trevor's mind is not up to speed yet. He was hanging out playing church rec league games, 10 days ago. He needed to be on the bench. Don't play guys because of brand names. Oh, by the way, don't trade for them or give them the buyout either. More on that later. And the Heat might have won that game last night.
Yeah, I think that point you made about Trevor Ariza being a name, we'll circle back to that, I think, when we
got to come back to this whole thing.
NBA title odds and all that.
I thought there were two other things. Okay. I've never seen anything like this Nets. Okay. So they are literally the favorite to win the championship in Vegas right now. A pretty big statement, right? By a fair amount. And yet, if you just look at like what has historically been the best predictor, Judy, if you don't mind clicking over to dunks and threes, like their margin, what are we looking at here? If you scroll a little bit to the left, I'm not sure how we got here, but anyway, so they're the eighth. They're the 8th ranked team when you do some calculations based on how much do they win by, who have they played against, basically strength of schedule, dunks and threes, power rankings, which is a more accurate predictor, a very accurate predictor in the past. So this is a team that has just a huge split between the two best known predictors. And it's because they have the best offense in history and a very bad defense. And Vegas is going to notice the offense, right? Because their gamblers are going to notice the offense, because fans are going to notice the offense. So I'm totally prepared to believe that this star-rich team will just defy all expectations and blow us away in the playoffs. We've seen this happen before, but boy, is it rare for a team that's among the worst defensive teams in the league to win championships. Like that never happens. So some precedent's going to break here, because this team is not like something we've ever seen before.
I'll tell you what the NBA doesn't want. They don't want Bucks versus Jazz in the final. Adam Silver don't want that at all.
No.
So David talked about this in the opening about Georgia, and I want to talk about the filibuster. I've mentioned it before, and it is something that really the Democrats need to work to kill. Right now, they own a slight majority in the Senate. And it really isn't a majority because the Senate split 50-50. The reason why they have the majority is because the Vice President, Kamala Harris, who is a Democrat, she presides over the Senate, right? So she breaks any tie, 51-50, legislation gets passed. However, a 51-50 majority is not filibuster proof. So what that means is the minority can then come in and say, we don't like any of these legislations you want to pass, and we can block it. And in order to get their legislation passed, they have to go through special loopholes like they did for the American Rescue Plan. They went through budget reconciliation. Problem is, you cannot pass all legislation that way, right? It's just not feasible. Now, the other issue the Democrats have here is that they could lose their majority in the midterms in 2022. Not only that, the Senate is generally filled of a lot of older people. If those older people should have failing health, and there are 10 of them, in states, or 10 Democratic senators who are 70 and older, in states controlled by Republicans, who the governor can say, Democratic senator is no longer able, I'm going to put one of my guys in there. And that will then change and flip the odds just off of something like health. So if you are serious, Democratic Party, about pushing your agenda forward, get rid of the filibuster. Just do it. More of the population wants what you are pushing, majority rule. Let's make it happen.
I think 75% of Georgians don't support what they just did in Georgia. 75%, it's a huge number. So it's not just at the federal level either that they're minorities ruling. So yesterday it was announced that Lon Kruger, who is most recently coached at Oklahoma University, Buddy Hield played for him and was player of the year before he went to Sacramento. He's retiring. He's one of 2 men to take 5 different NCAA tournament teams to the NCAA tournament. Penn American, Kansas State, Florida, Illinois, and then most recently Oklahoma, and was one of my 2 strongest mentors for a long time. There is no Coach Thorpe basketball, whatever, without Coach Kruger. He took me in starting in 1990 when he began recruiting some of my players and my city. He started coming to St. Pete. The very first player ever signed, he got from a recommendation I made at a rival school of ours, a guy named Lou Rowe, who became a college coach, actually. And never a scandal, nothing. His guys graduate. I don't think he's everyone's best friend, although many of his staff is typically guys that played for him. His son is just not named head coach at UNLV. He's a good man. He did ice cream socials for the guys that had the cleanest room. And let me tell you something, that was meaningful to me, to the player that I had for him that won one time. And Coach called to tell me that he had won. He is a good part of what NCAA could be. for building programs that help quality young people grow into be better men. And unfortunately, luckily his son took a spot in UOB, but it's sad to see him go. I'm sad. Oh, he took UOB to the Sweet 16 to the NCAA tournament, not Texas Pan American. That's his 15.
All right, that's my third 9x90 from David's story today. It makes an incredible point. There was no home court advantage last year in the bubble, right? No fans, everyone's on the same court, fine. And all in all, home court advantage has been diminishing, interestingly, in the NBA statistically, for reasons that we can talk about for as long as you want. But David's point is this year's playoffs are timed up that we might have some arenas will be pretty full with fans and some arenas will be empty, which could create the biggest home court advantage ever. That got me thinking in two different ways. One is, what is home court advantage? This will be interesting. Is it from fans, right? Does it come from sleeping in your own bed, eating your own food? In which case the fans being there won't make any difference. Or does it come from hearing people cheer for you like crazy? Probably different effects, different people, etc. But there's another thing, which is, I don't know about you guys, but I watched that Jazz game, which had, a pretty significant audience. And I was scared. I didn't feel good. I felt weird about it. Like by the playoffs, maybe players are vaccinated, maybe it's a different story. But I mostly was like, to me, I'm like, having people cheering for basketball players seems like it would be encouraging. But having 5,000 people in a poorly prepared COVID environment just makes me fucking scared. I don't think I would play my best like that. I'm wondering how different players will respond to that. But it just feels to me like a year when home court advantage is going to be wild and varied and unpredictable. And I guess like everything, yay, one more thing. We have no idea what's going to happen.
But just on that subject, do we know, I talked to an air conditioning specialist actually just by accident. He was in my neighborhood. Do we know if teams are using the best filters possible, like airplanes are using? I've not read anything about that.
Wait, David, are you saying, is the league putting forward scientific experts to explain their approach and take questions from journalists? Is that your question?
or just an owner. Like I've seen the Utah.
Are they just saying, trust us?
Yeah.
Hang a little sign on the door saying, we got to make some money here today, so please buy a ticket. Good luck.
Risk.
Look, it might be great. They might be doing everything perfectly. Like, we don't know what anybody's doing, right? Yeah.
I mean, you can't even make the assumption that like the brand newest buildings have the best filtration system, right? Because that could be where the owner decided, we're going cheap on that piece.
Exactly right. You're exactly right, Jarod. That's why I'm asking the question there. The guy that I talked to said that's what his company's been doing a lot lately to great success. Now it's one local company here, but he said, they're using scientists and they've got the filters and they feel really, really good. It's something someone should be talking about it come playoff time. Now, a lot more people will be vaccinated for sure. Players are talking about it.
Yeah, Lakers are a team that's like talking about it publicly. Yeah. Obviously,
that'll help.
The Grizzlies.
That'll help.
Okay, so we have so much to talk about. I think actually David, your big winners on the day were teams that did almost nothing. The Suns and the Raptors. You want to talk us through that?
Yeah, and I'm not to denigrate at all some of the deals that went down the last couple of weeks. It wasn't just yesterday, but yeah, we wrote an article a couple weeks ago that we thought Phoenix should stand pat. Like, I don't know how good they're going to be. I didn't put them as anything more than just they're just along for the ride right now on our Titletown bus because I don't think they can win 4 series as currently constructed. The cake has to bake a little bit more, I think, for most of their guys, but I could be wrong. But typically, it's not a team like this that wins, not just yet. But I'm glad they didn't make any big move to jump, to stay with all the other people in the arms race, because I just don't know how good they can be. I suspect they can be quite good. Like DeAndre Ayton is still getting better. Let's just let them grow. And yeah, I'm glad Kyle Lowry is staying in Toronto. Toronto really could have done what like the Magic are doing. They've really gone all in and get a ton of. They have so many players. When you think about Van Vliet and Lowry and Siakam alone and Boucher, there's 4 guys that could have got them loads of picks. And Masai is no contract next year. We talked about this before. So I'm glad Kyle's staying. Doesn't mean they won't trade him later. I'm glad they didn't get the deal they wanted. And they can be really good again next year. This has been a tragic year for them in terms of just bad fortune. They've had good fortune a couple years ago. This year, bad fortune. So smart. Stand pat. and let's just see what the offseason brings, and we'll see what kind of deals they get for Kyle, or Kyle stays, and they make another run at it. I think I'd like for that to happen. So I was glad those two teams did that.
Jarod, who was your favorite? Like, who performed the best on trade deadline day for you?
For me, it's still all like a wait and see, because I want to see how these pieces all kind of blend together. Of course, the biggest splash was Denver getting Aaron Gordon, right? Like, so yeah. I'm very curious to see what that looks like with Jokic, Murray, Michael Porter Jr., clearly who they're keeping as their third star, now Aaron Gordon. Coach and I talked about this on Wednesday. Obviously he is not everything the defender that Draymond Green is, but he's a good defender and he's a better offensive player. So what is a supercharged Aaron Gordon where he doesn't have to be your main dude? It's like, don't worry, Jokic has got that part.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All the other stuff. Like, does that make him and now Denver? Oh shit, now they're really good. Obviously, the easy thing you see is he's got size. So that gives them that wing defender they need when they got to go up against LeBron and Kawhi and Paul George and all that, which they didn't have before. So I'm so curious to see what Denver looks like. Orlando, hey, we're building for the future, right? Like, is apparently what their game plan is. We'll see how that plays out. And I'm always enjoying when I see pieces like Boston. Oh, Danny Ainge, we almost got Aaron Gordon. I'm looking forward to all the almost for Boston.
He said that?
I'm sure someone tweeted it already, like in the story. Oh, we were really close to getting Aaron Gordon, but we didn't.
Well, there were like Wednesday stories like that the Celtics are the front runners for Aaron Gordon, right? It's like I don't even think at this point the tweets are already written, right? It's just like
it's already there.
Yeah.
Did anyone predict any of the trades? Because there's always I've stopped looking at HoopSite on this kind of stuff because I've told you guys they're almost never right.
Yeah.
Because
there was a lot of Oladipo to Miami talk before.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was. Yeah.
Victor's camp has been angling to go to Miami for the last 2 years. That's where he's wanted to go.
Right.
And so they seem, and Miami's the other team. Interesting to see what they do.
I agree.
I'll tell you a quick thing that made me think about with Aaron Gordon is, okay, so he's a guy who maybe was underwhelming as the man on a middling team, but now gets to be like an all-in defender who does some athletic things on offense. Like, that's the Andre Iguodala story. He went from the Sixers to Denver and did exactly that transition and became like, eventually the Warriors were the ones who really took advantage of it. But, some players, and I think Aaron Gordon might be one, like confining their role is a wonderful gift, right? It's like,
sure,
let go of the rope to be a superstar Aaron Gordon and be an unbelievable role player. And that could be really cool.
They are, I mean, they're on my bus with good seating because they have the best player in the league right now, guys. He's not the sexiest guy on the court. He's not the most beautiful to look at unless you really love basketball. There's no high flying things going on. There's guys that are smarter than him. There's guys that are more skilled than him. He's not the best at any one thing, but when you pack it all together, he's the best player in the league right now in terms of how we evaluate the game.
You're reading my script, Coach, teasing something for next week. But it is interesting, right? Like, he may not be the best player in the world, but he's the best player in the NBA playing this season right now.
Right. You're exactly right. That's how to put it. Yeah. Oh, in one season, he's the best right now. That's exactly right.
Do you, like, as the ball pings around, do you have to guard Aaron Gordon the whole time?
Yeah. Well, this year, he's at, 35% from three? I think 35, which might be his best. And who knows what it'll be when he's more open, right? Yeah. Although he's open plenty of times in Orlando. He'll be more open now in Denver. But let me tell you something else. What happens with guys when you're not guarding them, you tend to turn away from them. It's something we really work at not doing. And Aaron Gordon, if you lose him, well, he's at the rim in a second with a pass from Jokic, who's going to see him. He's going to read the defender, not Aaron Gordon, the defender. When the defender has got two eyeballs on Jokic, Gordon should be right to the rim. And so he can make you pay that way.
Who are the Nuggets playing at the end of a close playoff game? Like, who are the five, you think?
Well, we know this. We know it's going to be Murray. I mean, Porter Jr. has improved defensively. I just was looking at that the other day. Murray, Porter Jr., Gordon, Jokic, there's four. Okay? Who's the fifth guy? Will Barton? Good defensive player, right? They go two guards with Morris. Could do that. Depends on what the other team's got too. But could be Paul Millsap, he's a better shooter than Gordon. So maybe they don't play Gordon, they play Paul Millsap, or they just go, listen, they can go big. They can go jumbo, right? Jumbo is Murray, Porter Jr. at 2, Gordon at 3, Millsap 4, Jokic at 5. Play some zone, stretch those arms out. They're really good. They're
And
really
you're
good.
okay there because your advantage you have is Jokic as your playmaker, right? Like,
Right.
so it's like, oh, what do you do about ball handling? It's like, we're fine because that dude can do it, right? And then if you need, like, Murray can bring the ball up, whatever, but you have playmaking from your 5.
Yeah, like Miami does with Bam.
Yes.
Yeah.
David, how did you feel about the Rondo to the Clippers trade?
So I do think that there's going to be a couple games in every series they play in the playoffs where Rondo is going to be very good, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how many minutes he'll get, but like he's done this a lot. And I also think that there is a lack of urgency. I wrote this actually, now that I think about it. There's a lack of urgency in the way the Clippers have played, fair to say. Rondo is kind of a prick as a teammate. And I mean that in a good way. Like every team needs those guys, especially when they're as brilliant as him. Like he ain't just saying stupid shit. He's saying really smart science. And so I think that'll have, a modicum of value. I see trickling them over to the top. I mean, I had them as favorites to start the year. Now they're third tier for me. So the answer is no. I don't know that, and they lose Lou Williams, who was just okay this year. And maybe Lou is just on cruise control and we'll turn it on later. We'll have to see what happens. But I'm worried about the Clippers in a way that I was less worried about them 2 weeks ago.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but when Rondo was winning championships in Boston, Tyronn Lue was an assistant coach on that team, I'm pretty sure. Right?
I don't know. I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure. I put it to you that they will that they know exactly how this is going to go, right? Like this isn't like, oh, let's see what role Rondo's going to play in the locker room. I think they know him well, right? Like he's been around.
Yeah.
That said, like the thing that bothers me is what you were saying about Trevor Ariza. It's like, okay, the brand of Rondo is that he's this leader, and the brand of Rondo is that he plays well in the playoffs and runs your offense and plays good D. But that becomes less likely with every year, right? Like the players that he's supposed to inspire now are like Terrence Mann, who like doesn't care what, like Rondo's not a legend to him, right?
Well,
Offense
his rookie card in his wallet. He was like, look at a Rondo rookie card.
So and I just feel like it's like maybe all those things will happen. It was very unlikely last year that it happened at this age, right? At his position, etc. Like it gets less likely every time. So I don't know. To me, actually, Dave, can we circle back to Trevor Ariza for a second? I didn't see that. I think your point was great that like, why was he in the game? I thought it was a point that my David Thorpe taught me about Trevor Ariza shooting threes as a Laker years ago, right? Which is they don't have very many games of preparing for the playoffs. Maybe you get to inspire him by putting him in a big spot. Oh, and by the way, he's guarded Damian Lillard in practice a bazillion times. So like, to me, it was a little bit of a vote of confidence. Totally cost the Heat a game, but
I would have waited a week. Like he just, what is he at? A practice?
Yeah,
it's not. It'd be different. I feel very differently if he had been playing in OKC. Yeah. But he doesn't have his sea legs under him yet. The game is too fast. And that's a terrible, terrible foul. Like so you cannot do that. It's the only way to literally guarantee you lose. Hit the shooter on the arm. You can't do that.
Yeah.
And a tie game. You just can't do it.
Trevor will be eating his vegetables today though, right? like you know what I mean? Like we're about to see how much he can buckle down because he just on national TV cost his team a game.
I'm a fan. I don't know that'll matter. The Oladipo thing in Miami, I'm glad Jarod mentioned it too.
Yeah.
That's grown on me since I first started writing the piece too. Oladipo was doing better than I realized in Houston. Why would I watch Houston? I didn't. But I did after the trade. I'm like, he was very good in Indiana when he was healthy. That's a big question. But he's better than Kendrick Nunn. He's just much better. And he's going to take Nunn's minutes. Nunn's value, sadly, right down. But Oladipo is good. And the Heat, because of what we saw last year, I can't count them out. And with Bam and Jimmy, Oladipo's the third guy with all of that depth. They're not going to be an easy team for someone to beat in 7 games.
So it's interesting, right? We talk about roles, and obviously when he was in Indiana, he was All-NBA third team and an All-Star, right?
Yeah.
And that's, that works. But now on this Miami team, you don't got to be number 1 or number 2 on this team. So again, you are now a super overqualified number 3, right? Like it's skill set and like positioning and team. Like, how does that make you better? Like the Aaron Gordon situation, you're supercharged for the role that you're in, right? You're probably a little bit better than that. But now, how much better does that make the collective when you don't have to do all these things? And so it'll be interesting to see, does a change of scenery, a place you want to go to, and I'm going to say it, #Heat culture. Does that then, reinvigorate him? And then, oh, look, Victor, you are super overqualified to be a 3, but that works for us. See,
he's kind of, so David, you're talking about him taking Kendrick Nunn's minutes, and that sounds right. But like, he might be kind of taking Goran Dragic's role, right?
Oh, for sure. He'll be some of that. Yeah, he's not just swapping one for the other. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they need that. Like without Dragic, they're not nearly as good.
What about the one player who nobody is mentioning is Belica?
Bielitsa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a time that I absolutely loved watching him play in Sacramento.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah. So does he make a difference in Miami?
Yeah. Well, they had that. Is he going to start at 4? Olynyk was starting for them.
Yeah.
So, he's got to get in shape. Pat Riley's pretty famous for body fat. Now, I've not seen Bielitsa without a shirt on all the time, actually ever. But he looked heavy last time I saw him on TV. So he'll be on the treadmill a lot when they use a bike. He'll be on the exercise bike every day. No, he's good. He's a very good player. Knows how to play, shoots it well. They're deep. They're talented. Hero's got to play better. Duncan Robinson's got it. Maybe we'll see more of a surge from him in a contract here. But Jimmy Butler's got to be really happy. Like, he might discount his big face coffee right now because he's so happy.
All right, so they add Oladipo and Bielitsa for nothing, basically.
Yes.
And now they get Marcus Aldridge too.
Olynyk was starting,
but
he wasn't doing much. They made LaMarcus too, right? I don't know why I didn't realize that Bielitsa was going there. But did that happen really late? I was so busy writing this. I missed.
Bielitsa was early. That was one of the early ones on
it. Earlier for you, David.
Yeah, I missed that. He adds value. And also, we should not forget Dallas getting JJ Redick and Nikola Melli, who was just awful in New Orleans, but is a very good player. Dallas just added, at the very least, one guy that knows how to play and can shoot and just figure stuff out. He was EuroLeague Player of the Year. And then JJ Redick, who I think we knew going in was going to be miserable in New Orleans. He didn't seem at all excited. I think he enjoyed Stan Van Gundy's negative coaching, overcoaching, manipulation when JJ was young because he got to eat that stuff up. Veteran JJ Redick ain't having it. So Rick Carlisle's way different. And he can just stand and watch Luka do his thing and hey, give me a couple of shots here and there. Like, I think you'll see JJ play better. Dallas got better.
I was going to say more shooting around Luka. That, like, not
bad.
That's always a good thing. Back to Miami really quickly.
Yeah.
I think, look, there's about 30 games or so left in the season, somewhere around there. We're about 2/3 of the way through. I mean, if they're going to go, they got to start going now, right? They got to kind of get themselves on a bit of a run here and really like start putting stuff together to figure out, are we this team that, we get into the playoffs, it doesn't matter what seed we are, look out, we can make another run. Because I'm sure, not Jimmy and Bam and Spo and Riles, they believe that 1,000%. I'm sure the rest of the team does too. Is this something where it's like, man, you don't want to get this Miami Heat team early, if you're one of those top 3 seeds in the first round, it's like, this sucks. Like we might get upset here.
Yeah.
I agree. Fournier to the Celtics. David, I think you like that a lot, huh?
I mean, I think they needed help defensively more than offensively, but it gives them 2 things. It gives them a very good 6th man, if that's what they decide to do, who can finish games. He's a very good shooter. We're not sure how good of a playoff player he is, but he's always been up against the same as Vooch, who I'm sure will come with the Bulls at some point, who was their best player. It also cleared, because they traded Daniel Tice, we're going to find out if Robert Williams can really play. I think. I don't know anything. I'm not reporting this, but the guy's numbers are amazing. I watched a ton of tape on him this morning. Super athletic, finishes at the rim. I could be wrong, but I think he's making like 72.5% of his field goals. So that's a bucket. Throw it to him, he gets a bucket. He's not taking bad shots. They need a 5. They need a 5 that could do so without Tice. And Robert Williams has played good defense for them too. They can also go really small. I think it's intriguing to think about Fournier on the court with Marcus Smart, because if you take Marcus Smart out, now your defense really struggles. So if you put Fournier with Marcus Smart and Kemba with Tatum and Brown, that's a hell of a team. And Embiid would beat them up, but Embiid ain't gonna have fun guarding those guys. He's not gonna have any fun guarding those guys. So that might be a way to zig to everyone else's zag, because if they can't play Robert Williams in the playoffs. Or Grant Williams, who's like the next PJ Tucker, he's not there yet. He's a second-year player. So yeah, I think they without sacrificing much, give themselves an interesting look anyway, you know?
What person? Like, okay, so when Fournier was drafted, Coleman Collins, who played against him in Europe, was basically like, "Look out! Like, look out! This is a bad man. Like, he is fearless in a special kind of way." And then, you know, he was bad for a while, and then, you know, I don't know. I just feel like we haven't really seen him at his full potential. You agree?
Masai called me the night they drafted him. He was in Denver. He was when I drafted him and said, "David, you're going to love him more than any player I've ever drafted because he's fearless," just the word you use. Like I think he said he's Algerian by birth and just fearless. That's what Masai said. And I got to tell you, I feel like I hadn't just described it. I never saw it until he got to Orlando, and he's a really smooth shooter. He's just a smooth player. But I don't know that smooth is the answer for Boston unless they do something innovative like play Tatum at the 5 and start to run you out, which is a theme going back to something Jarod said earlier with Portland. We might see 3 or 4 teams like, screw defense. Let's just try to outscore everyone. And, you know, Mike D'Antoni is commissioner of the league. You know, that might be fun to watch, right?
D'Antoni's like, yes, it's finally coming to fruition.
I've been waiting for this for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
No one went after Eric Bledsoe.
Well, that was just my thing. Eric Bledsoe.
Jarod's face, you can't see. If you're listening, you can't see Jarod making face.
Eric Bledsoe is having a terrible season, but the man was very good for the best team in the league regular season for a couple years in a row. Look up his numbers.
He was.
The system, he didn't suddenly get terrible, guys. I'm sorry. He's not 39. I think he's 31. And very athletic, but hasn't played super athletic for years. The system to play in New Orleans is so different than what they've done in Milwaukee, where he had the ball in his hands all the time, again, for the best team in the league. And I know they had Giannis, but they got Zion. So it's not that much of a difference, honestly, offensively. Zion's that good offensively. Bledsoe's role has changed. So I thought a team might realize, okay, he's expensive, but he's way better than the point guard we have. And I didn't even think about what team it might be. But he could really jumpstart us if we let him play the way he played like he did in Milwaukee. So it just kind of surprised me that you know, the Bulls, for example, got Vooch. I get it. He's 31, but at an age where that position doesn't age as gracefully as I think Bledsoe, just the way Bledsoe plays.
Wait, is this when you want to take a little minute to crush the Bulls, David?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the Bulls are trying to get to where Orlando has been, which is a really tough first round exit. You know, and hearing them talk now, when I say them, hearing people who love the Bulls talk now, and what's next? I think I know what's next for them. They're going to try to create a place for a third guy to come in the team with Zach LaVine and Vooch, and I don't see that. I don't see the appetite for that. I'm telling you, players don't see the Bulls the way we all would think they would because of Jordan's era. That's not how people see Chicago as a franchise. They don't have a new management team, and I think they're solid. What they did is fine. They're going to be a playoff team now. I feel very confident they're going to be a playoff team. What they need to do is develop Kobe White and Patrick Williams like crazy, and hope that by the age of 22, 23, and Pat Williams case he's 19, they become that third guy in a sense. But at that point, Vooch is going to be 33, 34. And again, I wrote this, and I'm not just trying to praise what I did before. I think they were better off doing what some of these other teams did and trade Zach LaVine at his highest point right now, and go ahead and get 3 or 4 young picks and players. They traded Wendell Carter Jr., who by all people thought he was going to be a really good player, and he's gone, and he was at the right age. So Yeah, and a year from now, we're going to talk about them being a first-round exit. Mark my words.
So what I see, I don't know about the Bulls in particular, but the common thing is owners cast around and say, how do you build a good team? And then you identify someone like Arturas Karnisovas who has long-term thinking, and he starts doing long-term things. And then the owner's like, well, this is getting boring. I don't like being bad. This is taking so long. We need to speed it up or you're fired. So then you get Vooch, right? Like,
and then you lose in the first round for 3 years in a row, like the Magic did.
It is. It's interesting because, Henry, this is taps into something we've sort of been talking about all show, directly and indirectly. The idea of reputation, right? And it's not just fans that do it. It's GMs and owners, right? Everyone involved in this media in this industry does it, right? It's because Coach talking about Bledsoe. The reason why I was making that face is because, yeah, Eric Bledsoe has been good for the best team in the league in the regular season, but that ain't what everybody remembers. What he remembers is, why can't you hit a shot in the playoffs, right? He stinks. Like that's what comes to the top of our mind, right? Go back to Trevor Ariza. Oh, yeah, he's good at defense. Like, even though the numbers actually say that, is that what we're actually seeing? It doesn't matter. That's what my brain recalls and last remembers. He's good at defense. So all these things that we do, and I think, Henry, it taps into your Nets piece about this disparity between their offense, whatever. That's because in our brains, in the highest leverage moments, which are the NBA finals, superstars win games. That's what our brain tells us. Well, that team's got 3 of them. So that's why right? And so that's like, this is what happens. So we do this versus numbers. Nobody cares what that says. My brain tells me what's going on.
Yeah, I've thought about this so many different ways, but that's like, okay, who's healthy? Somebody who ate a salad, right? Okay, here's a guy who's healthy. Like, okay, yeah, sure, salads are great, but you can do blood tests. Like, you can look at someone's, like, the doctor doesn't even really give a shit about the salad. They just want to see the blood test, right? Because this is like capturing everything you did, right? So I'm not saying that blood tests are gospel or your destiny or whatever, but it's like, you'd be crazy not to use blood tests if you're trying to predict who's healthy, right?
Agreed. I just think that most people don't got time or the inclination to think about a blood test. Salad, hamburger, yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Wait, so it sounds like we all watched the Heat Blazers last night.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the last play.
Okay.
I had it on, but I was on the phone a bunch, so I saw the last play with
perhaps you noticed. I'm sure Jarod noticed. Damian Lillard was in a tremendous amount of pain.
Yeah.
And then of course didn't come out of the game and hit the 3 free throws, whatever. That's happened in something like bad in several games lately. And if you look, he's played about as many minutes as anyone in the NBA with the ball, like driving into traffic the whole time. CJ was out. It reminds me of Baxter Holmes wrote this incredible story about it's called The Last True Days of Kobe Bryant, where he put on this month of unbelievable play, trying to drag his team to the playoffs, which ended with him tearing his Achilles. And there were all these warning signs week after week after week, day after day. All of his teammates were literally like, I think maybe he's going to die. Like, he was going so hard. It just strikes me that, okay, over the next, so now CJ's back, the Blazers are in the playoff hunt. Dame has done this amazing thing, but his body, he doesn't usually fall down very much. He's falling down all the time. People are smashing into him and he's getting up hard. And then he's getting the trainer with the gloves, rubbing his knee, and they send him back out there without even a second to misplay. Like, part of me's like, okay, so the Blazers are going to win, 4, 5, 6, or 7 of the next 10 games. That's just kind of how it is. If he plays or not, it will affect by 1 or 2 games, right? Take a fucking week off, right? Like, there is no way. Let's remember how the Blazers lost to the Lakers in the playoffs last year, right? He was a wreck. Like, they doubled him and he couldn't move. He couldn't get away from everybody, right? And I just feel like, okay, let's be smart here, right? This is not, you can't go hard every second from right now through the finals. Not how it goes, right? So when do you get your day off?
I really wish more teams would. I mean, it's so antithetical to everything, right? In terms of how these people have been brought up and raised and how basketball and how sport culture is, right? Science and rest is opposite of what these people have been trained to do, right? Which is, unless you are literally injured, and even if you are injured, you play through it because it's manly, it's this, it's that, it's all these different things. It's like, yeah, but if your ultimate goal is winning at the end, you're fucking yourself, right? Because you're not going to win at the end if you keep doing these things, right? Like, and that we know has been proven, especially in this season. We know the two teams that are going to be in the finals are the teams that have relative health vis-a-vis everybody else in the playoffs, right? If you're messed up and injured and you got problems, you're not making it because it's just too hard to play every other night. And then in the playoffs, when each game is 2x or 3x, now I have to ramp my energy up again. Like, how are you going to do that? I don't know, man.
When the Warriors were making their run for 73 wins, right, to beat the Bulls, ESPN we did like what do we call this, Henry? 5-on-5 maybe? Where 5 people would ask 5 questions, and so I was one of the 5 that did it. And the question was something like fact or fiction: should the Warriors go after the record? And I thought that's just a stupid question. Of course they shouldn't. So I wrote fiction, and Henry's my buddy. How can I not know the value of rest? Plus, I love Jason Bourne back in the day for Robert Ludlum. I knew rest was a weapon. So I made an argument. No one cares about the 73 wins if they don't win the championship.
Correct.
And I remember Mark Stein, who's a very, very dear friend of mine. Everyone else, Brian Winters, they all thought, yes, it's history and they'll win anyway. And obviously lots of crazy things happen for them to lose it. But it's not a surprise that Curry was on one leg at that point. And I think if they had to do it again, they wouldn't. And I've listened to a podcast talking about how Draymond Green was the reason why they did. In fact, there was an article written, Pastor may have written it, where Draymond was like, fuck yeah, we're going to get this. He was all testosterone and machismo, and somebody said, sit the fuck down, Draymond. You're an amazing player, but we're not going to let you dictate our policy to win a championship in June. That's the legacy we want. The back-to-back, the wins, whatever. We don't have to get that.
Well, there's a little bit of there's a delightful trust in being willing to be a superstar and sit out, right? I mean, we're seeing it right now. It's happening all over the league. There's so many superstars who are out right now mostly because they're really injured, maybe because they're saying they're injured while they're resting, right? But I don't think it's the worst thing for, the 7th player on your team to get the ball with the game on the line and like get to feel that and go through that. And like, it's not the worst thing. I think so Dame created that play at the end that got the 3 free throws, but I think the one before I took a little mental snapshot with maybe 7, 8, 9 seconds on the shot clock. CJ McCollum's like doubled. There's a million defenders in the paint, but somehow it turns into Derek Jones Jr. and 1, I think. Like, this is a capable player.
Yeah.
If the worst case scenario for your team is that guy's doing that, all right, like, not bad.
It is. It goes back to not only how our brains remember it, how the narrative and story of winning gets told, right? And it's the superstar comes to save the day, and of course, you're not getting there without that person doing whatever the percentages of the work. But you ain't actually winning if these other people aren't doing the right things too, right? Like, and if they don't have the experience to do those right things, as you're saying, Henry, in that moment, they're going to be like, oh shit, what the fuck's going on? I've never been in this situation before. So it behooves you to actually allow them to feel those emotions and experience that so that you can use them come winning time. But it's the superstar thing. Like, I don't know if you saw the Nets Jazz game the other day, and Coach, we talked about it on Wednesday. Harden will probably sit. I have never seen a player do this. Odds are he wasn't going to play anyway, but he came out to warm up, whatever.
Eating on the bench?
No.
I saw that.
I've seen that before.
Yeah.
He comes out onto the bench, but instead of being in like street clothes like Blake and everybody else, he's still like in his uniform with like, yeah. I'm like, what you think? You're going to stand up and Steve was going to be like, all right, I'll let you in. And it's like, dude, just chill. Like, punt this one. It's fine. But their brains can't do it.
I was literally thinking, I didn't know if he would be deactivated for the game or not, but I was thinking, dude, if you spill something on your uniform, like, what are you going to do? Of course, he was wearing a warm-up, but I was thinking, like, what is he doing? He'll get in his beard. He's getting some kind of finger food. I was laughing my ass off. But yeah, we had talked to him today. Like, you can't play that game. So that was smart. And they got beat by 50.
And it's fine. Whatever.
Whatever, right. It's one game. And why would you let the Jazz know? We said this on our show. Why would you let the Jazz know how best maybe to defend us when we're resting Kyrie and KD or one's hurt or foul trouble? Like, don't give them any look. That might be your opponent in the finals. So it's cat and mouse. Right? Don't play that game.
And let the cheese man roll. You know what I mean?
He did. In fact, I want to say he had 11 assists that game. Maybe?
Yeah, he played a lot of minutes.
Fun to watch.
Cheese man's good. Cheese man can go. Cheese man can go. Yeah, I like those little fast guys. There was another
David,
team
wait. So there's someone whose job it is to convince, in my example, Damian Lillard or LeBron, whoever, to sit down, and that's the coach, right? I think it's absolutely right that these players are dying to go out there and do what they do, right? But we have this little thing we quote in this house all the time. I forget who it's from. Basically, behind every great artist is someone who told them to stop, right? Like if you're Da Vinci, you're probably obsessive about getting it perfect, and you might just keep tinkering with every painting. And someone has to come in and be like, "Nope, this one's going to the wall. We're done." So in the NBA, that's the coach, right? So what do you say? How do you convince LeBron, mega competitive James, before he's injured, to take a couple of days off?
I mean, I can tell you what I would do, which is, do you remember a time where you were hurt? How did that feel to not be able to help your team? Now imagine that's you in the most important game of our season. If you sit now, the probability of you being healthy for that important game goes up. Nothing's guaranteed. If you play now, the probability of you not being able to play, or at least the way you want to play in the more important game, goes down. Your choice, LeBron. Which do you think? Because you can argue if you want that you're a man of steel, but science tells us 100% sure you're not. History is on our side on this. That's how I would put it.
I like it.
Then I make the choice from there. Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a little more any given Sunday. I got to be honest.
No. The speech I just gave.
No helmets. You can't hide the helmet in basketball because there's no helmet.
I've given that speech at least 100 times. At least 100 times the last 5 years to players everywhere. Like, now in the postseason, it might be different. That's a different conversation when you've got a guy saying, it's game 4, game 3, game 2. There may not be a game 5, 6, or 7, depending on the situation. The regular season, I always give that speech, like, you have to live another day and not play today. You have to think about that.
I have an idea, coach. Here's what you do. You give them your speech, but as your backup, you work with the equipment manager. Hide their shoes.
Yeah, it's fine.
You ain't got no shoes. You can't play with no shoes, dude. Where are my shoes? I don't know. Couldn't tell you.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, I want to get your opinion. This is for both of you, but Henry will be more thinking about it because it's Portland. I was just thinking about Bledsoe today, and I was thinking about Zion and Brandon Ingram as such talented players. Like when you think about the Bulls got, Levine and Vooch, that's not even close to the same world as Ingram and Zion as a duo, right? And they're younger combined. In fact, both Ingram and Zion are younger than both Levine and Vooch, okay? So who's next for them? I thought, what if CJ played for them?
Oh.
And
not
they have a
available.
lot of picks.
Thank you.
I know they have a lot of draft picks, and a couple young guys, probably none that can really help Portland now. Jackson Hayes is super athletic, but he can't help them right now.
Wait, hold on. You want CJ McCollum for Jackson Hayes?
No. It has to be like 2 or 3 number one. They have a lot of first round picks coming. It has to be 2 or 3 first, which you can use to get someone to fit better. And Lonzo Ball to play next to Damian, guard 2. He's shooting 40-something% from 3. He's a very high IQ player.
Henry is not having it.
You should have led with the Lonzo Ball. I'm just saying. Like
Lonzo and 2 or 3 probably 2 number ones and maybe Hayes, whatever. I'm not saying it would happen either, but would you even consider it?
I mean, okay, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I don't actually run the Trailblazers. I know it's I feel like I do sometimes.
But here's why I said this. You
yeah.
watch the game yesterday, as we said. CJ, but this has become the Blazers beat. CJ is unbelievable.
He's unbelievable.
And he's the second best player in his team in the backcourt.
I mean,
at least in the Pelicans, he'd be the best player in the backcourt, right? He might be the third best player. Right now, he'd be the best player, but those 2 other guys are great. I'm not even saying they're the best fits, although Ingram and Zion should be great defenders to make up for what CJ doesn't bring defensively. But I think it'd be pretty cool to see that with those guys.
Look, I mean, do you remember what Jarod did in 9x90 around CJ, right? Like, to me, like, that's almost as valuable as anything he'll do, right? Like, he's like a dude, right? He's a leader. He's amazing. Like, so to me, like, I think probably a lot of the, like, things that work for the Blazers franchise really work because of the trust between Dame and CJ.
Yeah.
And that's the little umbrella which keeps Terry Stotts in a job and which makes, like, Gary Trent keep working hard even when he's not getting minutes and on, right? Like, I think that, and they both re-signed, and saying they love each other.
No, you would have to get them to buy in. You have to get Damian to say, you know what, let CJ be the best player in his team. Without question, you just don't trade anyone of those two. But just to Jarod's point about that his first thing, CJ has perspective, and that is incredibly valuable for a player and a team, because most of these players, because they're young, we didn't either. They really struggle with perspective. It's what I try to bring to them as much as possible. Being an old man, perspective.
And I'll tell you what else. Like he's a freaking worker. He's added. He was his offensive game was okay. So I had lunch with CJ before he was drafted, and we made a bet. And the bet was about, and I lost the bet. And so I had to write a glowing review of his game. And so his whole rookie year waited for the moment, and there was never a moment. And then I ran into him, and I'm like, and he's like, "You lost the bet. We're just thinking." I'm like, "You shot like 30%. Like, what am I supposed to do?" Like, and so now I need to pay off the bet. I need to write a big glowing article about CJ. But now, I mean, I don't want to make too much of this, but the fact is, this season, only Jokic has better stats.
Yeah.
All in all. He's like the second best fucking player in the NBA, having been out a bunch of games. So now that he's got a different shot selection with way more threes, like super stupid time to trade him, right? Like,
right.
Like,
thank you. Coming around, Henry.
I don't know if you're right. You might be wrong.
Henry,
like,
what's the Blazers cap situation?
Bad.
All right, I'm done with the Blazers.
No, it's hard to move on. It is.
I want to hear about CJ. I have it on Synergy, but I've never done it. What was it like seeing him in the Ivy League? I mean, and not just the Ivy League, but at Lehigh.
It was, I mean, again, I was like, why is this dude playing in this league?
What was he doing?
Usually like 45 points killing everybody. I was like, what the hell is this dude doing? Like, and then of course, when he actually played an Ivy League team, an ACC team in Duke, he killed them too. Oh, well.
And he was the sports editor. After that game, he would go home and edit the story about CJ McCollum destroying Duke.
He is a super bright guy. Again, as I wrote in our doc, and as Coach said, perspective. Like he's one of my favorite players. But it's also, I wonder too, Henry. This is something I've always talked about. When you come out from the Patriot League and you were 5'4" when you were a freshman, because you see in the pictures. He was tiny. He couldn't even fit his basketball jersey when he was a freshman in high school. He was small. Wow. And you come in with not a lot of fanfare, and you do that whole thing, and you have to work and work. How much of that allows you to grow into your perspective quicker than someone who is number one from the time they were 8, and now I am this, and all these things, and I have to live up to expectations versus, well, I'm just doing me because I know I'm good.
So I think, like, I'm totally into what you're saying here, Jordan. I have a personal theory that, like, the older you are when you become famous, the more likely you are to be good at coping.
Yeah.
Right. These are formative teen years. And like, if you get through them dealing with like, oh, I didn't get the shot, I didn't want whatever. Like, and actually in CJ's case, his brother, Eric, who we looked up to, who's also an incredible basketball player, just isn't very tall.
No.
And just has to live with, like, so maybe the best player in the McCollum family is not in the NBA. So CJ has some perspective there too, right?
Yeah, right.
It's like, he's lucky.
That helped LaMelo having Lonzo as an older brother. One of my favorite things to do to that point a little bit is I like watching the introductions to like major international soccer matches with countries, especially South American countries, where that national team is the most important thing in that country. And I just think about what journey each of those 11 players had to have taken. Not all of them were the best players when they were 7, 8, 9. Some were always the best. But I guarantee at least half the group were late bloomers. And now they're wearing their country's jersey which again is the most important thing ever. I don't follow soccer that close. I know their names. I don't speak their languages, but I love thinking about what it must be like to be. So it's same as CJ. Like he's killing the league. And he played at Lehigh. Like, it's all puppy dogs and ice cream. All-star game, whatever. Like, it can't get better than this. 5 scoops of chocolate fudge or 6. It's all amazing. Doesn't matter. I'm truly living the dream, man.
6, please, sir.
No, you don't have perspective. He's got perspective. Yeah, that was pretty spectacular. So So we said big winners. I'm gonna ask you guys. All right, who's the champion in our last 30 seconds?
Oh,
Who's in the finals? Who's in the finals?
Oh, finals. Didn't we do this last week?
No,
Yeah,
2
we're
weeks ago we
doing
did.
Henry, you go first.
Lakers. I'm gonna say my Lakers Sixers. I'll say with Lakers Sixers. I said
Lakers,
before.
Sixers.
Stick with Nets Jazz.
I'm going Bucks Jazz. So
Bucks,
we're
Jazz.
starting to get some commonality anyway.
Okay. Thanks everybody. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Jarod. Thank you, David. Thank you,
Dave,
Didi.
go Knowles.